Genesis 1 through 2. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. I'm sure as we talk about the existence of God, that there's a lot of ideas and a lot of conjecture, a lot of stupidity when people start asking questions about the existence of God. Like, where was he before this? I don't know. I've always thought maybe he had done this before. You know, maybe he tried it all again and it was worse than we are. Now, that'd have to be bad. Maybe he, I don't know what he did before the existence of the world as we know it. But this is it. In the beginning, God. I don't doubt it one bit. God existed always. I don't understand it, but I don't understand the Trinity, but I sure believe in it. I don't understand a lot of things. I don't understand how I have witnessed people go to an altar, some drug addicts, some alcoholics, some just plain old sinners. And Bethany told you about the man that got saved last week, that he was an atheist. And he didn't want anybody talking to him because he was already made up his mind. But how God can change people's mind. And he can. He does. I've seen it. We had a couple that had, she had 2 children by former marriage. And so her ex got to have the boys, a boy and girl, got to have them every so often. You know how the rules go sometimes. And so this location was a wicked place to be. What they showed on movies, what they showed on TV, how they treated the kids, what they partook of while the kids were there didn't matter to them. The kids were there. And so we had men's prayer meeting then every other Saturday, and the women had prayer meeting every other Tuesday. So every week we kind of covered the bases. Well, we really got down to business for these 2 kids because they're the sweetest kids ever was. And we got down to business for them, and we had a prayer. We had a prayer. And the women were praying too on their prayer meeting. And what we were praying is that the other side would just give up the kids. That they get tired of having them. And that's what happened. And when they met for the hearing to the judge, the other people didn't even show up. So the judge, full custody to the couple, and the couple's still at Beach Fork. The son was there today. He's a state patrolman, and the daughter married a Navy boy, and I forget where they are right now. I think in Virginia, maybe. They've been all over the world, and wonderful lives. All of them saved. All of them living for God. That's what God can do. But these prayers that people tell me are answered, I don't doubt them one bit. Because I've seen it. I've just seen it with my very own eyes. Healings, changes, people getting jobs when there wasn't no jobs, wasn't any jobs. Do I have any English teachers here? I talk Appalachian, and so does my son. It bothers me because his goes over all these big places. And I thought, somebody's going to come up to you. But they're his English teachers in our congregation. And she never corrects him. So if she don't, I'm not going to. Anyway, in the beginning, God. Don't ever forget that. You don't have to know anything more. And if you don't believe that, you don't believe. And if somebody else doesn't believe that, they don't believe. You've got to believe to be saved. That's the essence of salvation, is believing. Having faith. That's what it's all about. Our life, we do live by faith. A whole lot. A whole lot. Some live more by faith than others because some of the others don't have to. But I think faith has waned in our society because we have too much. Amen and ouch. I know very few people that have to pray in food. When Lois died, that kind of died. I'm sure you've told some stories of Lois Royster. And there's just one, I don't think I'll ever have this much faith. The Lord told her to go to the grocery store. She didn't have a dime. Didn't have a credit card. And as she went through the aisles, the Lord told her exactly what to put in her basket. And she, oh, Lord, I don't need it. You put it in the basket. And she did. Pretty well had a full, this has been several years ago, but it still wasn't 20 or 30 bucks, you know. But she went to, and here she is, starting down this aisle to the cashier, and didn't have those, that you have to do the work, you know. You had a cashier and probably had a few lights. I went to Kroger's last week. One light. I didn't say anything. That crazy Tom mentioned about flying off the handle, about the axe flying. He said, I could preach on flying off the handle. And I did fly off the handle this week, but it was a really good reason. The phones were out for 5 days at Beach Fork, and my mother-in-law is 94 years old, and she depends on that to be able to, if she's in trouble, if she's sick, she has to have her phone to work her little thing that she's supposed to wear. And I think she lays it on the bed. She don't do anything what she's supposed to, but she needed her phone. And I just said, my mother-in-law needs this phone. And did you hear me? Well, my mother-in-law probably heard me 20 miles away. By the way, you did a fantastic job tonight. Yeah, he's got it. He's got the rhythm. Anyway, where was I? Lois, thank you. She went, here she is, going to the thing. And right at that moment, a lady said, I'll take care of this. And I don't have that much faith. I'm sorry I don't. Maybe I would. I don't know. I've got a lot of faith. We've had to live by faith. The last 3 years, the only good thing about me being sick for 2 years, and I didn't get here very much because I couldn't get ready. So weak, and Debbie that's her main thing now is weakness. But we just had to live by faith. That's all there was to it. And we trusted God. The only thing that was good about my sickness is that it was, this is kind of silly, it was during the time of COVID. And so nobody was calling us to preach anywhere anyway. So I didn't get any calls, but because I was sick. But then now I have to put it on, but I don't want to put it in Facebook. I'm available. I don't want to do that because it looks like I'm begging for appointments. And I trust God. I will go when people call me. Anyway, in the beginning, God. Don't ever forget that. I could close right now, shouldn't I? But I'm not going to. In Psalms 90 and 2, it says, before ere mountains were brought forth, or ere thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting. And the psalmist said, thou art God. Oh, if we could just recognize God for what God is. And there's a lot of foolish prayers that are prayed. And I'm not going to say, like, if one of these kids have a puppy that's sick, I don't care if they pray for their puppy. That's okay. But there's people that, like, I never did pray for Ohio State to win. And I've been old enough and saw enough losses, way more wins than losses. And in my lifetime, we've beat Michigan more than they beat us. In my lifetime. It was all those years back in the 1920s and stuff. You know, that don't even count, does it? If it's 100 years more past. We need to pray for sincerely, without any giggles. Get down to business. And I think we would see way more happening. Now, Debbie has lists, and I thought, I need to make a list. I think that's a good way. I always did pray for my church because everybody sits the same place. Thank the Lord for that, for we prayer warriors. I'd go down at night when I go to sleep. I would start down the row and pray for the families. If there's unsaved, I would remember. If there was sickness, I'd remember. So I prayed for all of that. And then wherever I stopped, wherever I remembered that I went to sleep, that's where I started the next night. So if you know, somebody was way back in the back of the church, they didn't get prayed for. No, I would start there. Anyway, thou art God. Now I want you to note this in Proverbs 8, 22 to 31, but you can just remember Proverbs 8, you'll find it. Wisdom was always with God. Wisdom was never created. Wisdom always was. Now, I want to give you a little Bible help. In the book of Proverbs, much of Proverbs is talking about wisdom, not humans. So a lot of times it says something that I've heard people, I quote myself, I've heard people quote Proverbs as if it was concerning people. But most of Proverbs is talking about wisdom. It's what we call personification. It personifies, it like makes it a human, but it doesn't refer to humans. So in this, it was talking about that wisdom. It says I. It makes wisdom say I. It's like wisdom's talking. I was it. I was this. I was always there, and I was there, and I was there. And when God formed, I was there. Well, God is wisdom. He knows it all. And I get so aggravated with people who don't know it all, but say they do. College professors. I'm sure all of you that's been to college has had people that were in a subject that you knew they were wrong. I never did argue with them, and I'd always put the answers on my test, what they wanted, not what I believed, because I wanted to pass. You know, I wanted to have good enough grades to get into pharmacy school, and then good enough grades to get my diploma. And I went straight through 15. We had quarters in 15 quarters, 5 years, 15 quarters. Never missed a thing. I got some bad grades, but not real bad. But I had plenty of acumen to make it, and that was it. If you set your sight with some wisdom. But science has no answer. If we say God did it, they don't have any answer that makes any sense. And I don't care about, they say it's, so many billions light years away. I don't know. I don't care. But when they start, it just happened. And I would ask them, well, where did that come from? If it was a big bang, where was this little bang and little bang to make a big bang? Where was it? Where'd that come from? Somebody had to start it. It was God. And there's no doubt in my mind that God has always been God. God is wisdom. God is love. God is light. God is everything. And He set it all up. I am so glad that God, when He made the animals first before He made man. Man was last. I'm glad. He was kind of tired when he said, I'm going to rest now. And sometimes I thought, well, you did create man, but there's some of them I don't know. In school, this is what I found out about God. See, I'm sitting there. I'm a good old Free Will Baptist boy. Got saved when I was 8 years old, and the things that people did in college to have fun, that wasn't part of my life. I had to work if I wanted to spend any money, so I worked. I worked and went to school. Anyway, I was busy about good things. And I would study, and I would go to work, and I would study, and I would go to work. But this was it. So that I would sit and listen to the professors. And as they spoke, and I would think in my mind, that's a bunch of silly foolishness. They're wrong because we're right. And just a kid from Appalachia, that's how I got the language. Sauter County, just as Appalachian as here. In fact, you Pike County people speak a little bit more like Columbus people than we did. We were really more. It was the influx of Kentuckians that made Sauter County speak a little bit more Appalachian. And I don't have any problem with speaking Appalachian. I think it should be called a language. Because listen, I worked at Walmart in Waverly, right? Some of you saw me there. And I would have an old phrase. You know, we've all got these old phrases that our grandma and grandpa, and it passed down. And so I would say one of these phrases. And the girls would look at me and say, "What does that mean?" I said, "You don't know what that means?" Really? And I thought, where have you been all your life? In Cleveland? But I think it's a great language, and our slang, the good slang, of course, I think it's cool, you know. We had an old fellow, we had a gas station, and we had, in the summertime, they used to have wooden crates for pop, you know. And by the way, it's pop, not soda. And I hate people say soda. My brother went off to somewhere and come back starting calling that soda. I said, "Danny, did you know?" He's a good Free Will Baptist preacher too. But he said, "This is pop area. This is not soda area." But anyway, moving on. They would speak these words. And I wanted to say so bad, "Now take me back another step in time." And they couldn't do it. It had to be God. God's created. The existence of the universe depends on him. And when he said, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, that is not necessarily the planet Earth. It means he created that side and this side. And in the middle, later on, he has the firmament. The firmament separates all of God's area and our area. And our area includes every star in the sky. Because he didn't make those stars for himself. He made them for us. What? For signs and not zodiac. Oh, don't you even mention zodiac. And don't even read it in the paper. Horoscopes are not God's stuff. Read it here and follow the word of God. You don't need horoscopes because horoscope is a bunch of bunk. Is that a good word? Okay. Well, she would know, I guess. Is that okay? Bunk. Anyway, he sustains creation. That's what it is. All things. He sustains. Nothing moved until he moved. Created heaven and earth. And the earth was without form. That means no particular shape. It was just there. And there must have been all water at that time because it said, "And darkness was upon the face of the deep." Now, one commentator I studied this week said that the deep went both directions. The deep, in God's territory, as far as, there is a time, darkness, if even stars haven't been created. But if you have stars, I don't know if they're shining that away or just for us. Because I was talking about the signs, wasn't I? Signs, that whole signs mean that find the North Star and follow north. It's direction, not who to marry or what job to get or all that junky stuff. Anyway, my mama was superstitious, bless her heart, and, with a lot of things. You have two forks at the table. On one, we set a table, People ate at a table then. Now they eat in the lazy boys, or at least the Bears do. My mama said, if a Two Forks was at a setting, that meant they were going to get married next. I thought that if he caught the bouquet. I know. I think Richard tried to get the bouquet all the time. Nothing moved till he moved. When he moved upon the face of the water, of the deep. When he started moving, things started happening. First thing he said was, let there be light. He said, well, did he need to see what he was doing? Good gracious. This is God we're talking about. God doesn't need light to see because he is light. Just a very idea, people, that just drives me crazy. Nothing moved till he moved. He owns it all. Therefore, he rules it all. See, my dad, pretty strict. Pretty strict in some ways. He didn't live it, so I don't know why he made us kids live it. But anyway, he did, and it didn't hurt me any. It did hurt me sometimes. Moving on. But this was his idea. He said, I have rules, and you'll follow my rules, or I'll break your plate. You know what that meant? If you're not going to follow my rules, hit the road, Jack. I told my son Brian that one time, did I not? I did. He was left at home to take care of his sister. They're 3 years apart, but she needed looked after at that time. And still probably does. So. No, he's not going to say anything. Anyway, when we got home, he had not obeyed what I had told him to do. And I said, Brian, this is it. I told him exactly what my daddy said. I've got some rules. You don't, because he told his mother he didn't like Dad's rules. I said, I don't care if you like them or not, but you have to obey them. And if you don't want to obey them, there's the road. And by the way, the car you drive, it's in my name. You don't get the car. You're going to hoof it down the road. Get your stuff. Get a suitcase, whatever you want. Out you go. Well, he didn't go. Somebody asked me, said, what if he had? Well, if you know Brian, like I know Brian, and we lived out in the country, and every other house had what? A dog, which he was horrible afraid of, and still is at the age of 47. We had two by twos visitation. You never went one by one. You went 2 by 2. So he always had his uncle Scotty to go with him because Scotty stuttered. And so Scotty couldn't talk. He didn't want to talk. And Brian needed somebody to take care of the dogs. Because Scotty and the dogs did just fine. So that's the way that was. Anyway, God of eternity wants to be the God of your life. To take chaos of your life and transform it to his desires. Oh, if we would just do what God wants. The created word, the word created means something from nothing. When you talk about creation, you only speak of the outcome, not the source, because there is no source for creation. There's nothing. And then, so you don't, ladies, you do not create a cake. You do not create fried chicken or even the good noodles. Those aren't created. Those are made because you had material. God makes things from nothing. And we have a lot of people, maybe you have some relatives, that really do consider themselves nothing. Right? Are you really? They are so down on themselves. Debbie had a cousin that just died last year, and he was so down on himself. He did a lot of things bad, but at the same time, he was a super duper talented young man, and he had all kind of charisma and just fun to be around, and could play a lead guitar like no man's business. He really, really, really was good, and had a good singing voice. And but he just didn't think he was worth anything. But he was. And God gave him the talents. And he only used them in church as far as I know. But he was nothing. And God took nothing and made somebody that could really work for him. Without form, no shape, no structure. God didn't need that to exist. Man did. Man needed form and needed structure. And pretty much, I know man needed light, and he needed the stars and the sun and the moon, one for day, one for night, and the others to guide us along our way. Well, before conversion, that's what we are. We are nothing. We have no form. We have no shape. And the word void, you know what that means? Empty. I thought it meant fake or worth nothing. Not necessarily. It's empty. The word void is empty. I worked at the hospital. I should have known that. Darkness, because light hadn't been created yet. The Spirit of God moved. The unsaved have no idea the form and structure that God can make out of us. No matter how you're raised, no matter what your background, no matter what dad does or mom does or anybody else does, people can rise above their raisings and they can also sink beneath their raisings. I know them both ways. Well, before creation, he existed. He acted upon his existence. He acted upon. Your life began by him. Your life only makes sense with him. And your life is substance because of him. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And this is the best. When God sees that potential. Isn't that what God saw on this horrible earth before he did anything? He saw potential. That's what he sees in our unsaved folks. What talent there is out there. What abilities. What youth directors and Sunday school superintendents and deacons and tithe givers and on and on and on I could go. There is so many unsaved people that I know and you know that if they were just saved, God could use them. The pastor could use them. What a wonderful, wonderful thing they would be in our congregations. It makes me sad. Debbie has a cousin that is, I have never met anybody just exactly like her with the talent she has. If we would have a Christmas program and you give her a list of costumes we needed, they weren't just cotton and plain. When she did a costume, she made a costume. She made one for Broadway or a movie. She's just fantastic. Decorate a room, oh my. She just has such a talent. She backslid for years. And her mom died not too long ago, Debbie's aunt. And we went around, of course, at the visitation. And I called her by name and I said, do you realize the talents that you have that you're not using? And she got back to the Lord, however you want it, reclaimed. I don't know what you people call it. But she is now working in a church. We saw her costume. Glory to God. We saw her costumes for the last Christmas program. And she's back at herself. I mean, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. He said, oh, what does that mean? Do you realize, it wasn't so much this Christmas, but normally when we had a Christmas program, where I grew up, at Beach Fork, anywhere else, the place was packed. People aren't much interested in stuff. It doesn't look like. Maybe it was just a bad night. People were sick. I don't know. But in that crowd, an Easter program, we used to have some Easter programs. We used to have Christmas programs. Who comes on Christmas and Easter, but not through the year? Unsaved. And we can get the gospel message out if it is a skit, if it's a program of some sort, if it's a singing program, whatever it is, we can reach the lost in that way for them to get hungry for what we do.